Last year, I faced one of the most challenging decisions of my life, divorcing my wife. I often find myself pondering why she chose to break up our family, searching for answers that seem elusive. When my friends may advise me to move on, I can't deny the whirlwind of emotions that occasionally engulf me. It's difficult to comprehend why my wife, despite knowing she was better off without him, decided to engage with her ex. Allow me to recount a story of how our paths crossed. 7 years ago, when I was 34 and she was 31, destiny brought us together on a bus during our daily commute to work. She would board the bus 3 stops after me, and I would often find myself captivated by her presence, unable to look away. Among the several lovely girls who frequented the bus, she stood out as my favorite. One fortuitous day, the bus driver stepped out to enter a convenience store, leaving us alone, prompting an exchange of laughter between us. That moment marked the beginning of our conversation, one that continued ever since. As we rode the bus and engaged in dialogue, she often brought up her boyfriend named Keith, sharing her grievances about him. She frequently recounted instances where Keith was unfaithful to the mother of his child, causing a rift between them. The suppositions and nectaries built to the strained relationship between Keith's son's mother and my wife. Their connection remained turbulent, resulting in frequent separations. I held deep affection for her, which led me to implore her to break free from the circus-like love triangle she found herself in. However, despite my urging, she remained steadfast in her decision to stay. I felt helpless, unsure of how to extricate her from the perplexing situation. Everything changed when my father generously gifted me his SUV, having upgraded his own vehicle. It was a remarkable gesture, and one of the first things that crossed my mind was using it to pick her up from the bus stop. As soon as I acquired the car, I began the routine of fetching her and accompanying her to work, an act her ex had never done. Despite the slightly earlier arrival at her workplace, her happiness blossomed. I then expanded our excursions, taking her to various places simply to spend time together and enjoy each other's company. We discovered a multitude of shared interests, particularly since she had relatives in Guyana, the same town where I had spent my childhood. After a considerable amount of time had passed, I mustered the courage to express my feelings to her and urged her to leave her boyfriend. Despite her attempts to provide me with a multitude of excuses, she failed to present a compelling reason to stay with him. However, a few days later, she surprised me with a phone call, expressing her desire to spend the weekend together. When I picked her up, she revealed that she had made the decision to end her relationship with him. From that moment onward, we became an official couple, embarking on a new chapter together. We enjoyed 3 blissful years of dating before taking the next step and getting married. Being in a relationship with me brought her immense happiness, which she proudly shared with her friends, boasting about how amazing I was. This filled me with a sense of contentment, and I couldn't help but envision us as one of those lighthearted couples featured in entertaining TikTok videos, the kind she often watched. As our bond deepened, she began discussing the idea of marriage, and soon after, I proposed to her. The joy that enveloped us in the aftermath of the proposal was so overwhelming that we found ourselves expecting a child before our official wedding ceremony took place. Following our marriage, we were blessed with 2 beautiful daughters and a cozy home that we called our own. Life seemed to be going smoothly, leaving me with little to complain about. We embodied the quintessential family, constantly on the move, chasing after our energetic 5-year-old and spirited 3-year-old, while juggling our work responsibilities. I made it a priority to treat my wife with love and respect, striving to strike a harmonious balance between being a devoted father and a caring husband. Likewise, she made sincere efforts to fulfill her roles as a mother and spouse, even though it proved challenging at times due to the spirited nature of our delightful daughters. On a particular day, my cousin Anthony informed me of his cancellation due to his mother's imminent discharge from the hospital, as he had the responsibility of picking her up. I made the decision to utilize my wife's car to finally address the persistent issue of the check engine light. Once I concluded my visit to the repair shop and departed, I proceeded to open the glove compartment in order to stow away the relevant paperwork for future reference. However, as I opened it, a multitude of miscellaneous items tumbled out, necessitating my immediate attention to gather them up. While engaged in this impromptu tidying task, I stumbled upon a rather recent photograph featuring my wife alongside her ex-boyfriend Keith. The discovery of the picture caught me off guard, as it depicted him confined in a certain location. In the photograph, my wife was present alongside him as well as his sister Nadine. This revelation came as a surprise since I had never heard about Nadine visiting him during his period of confinement. In fact, I was completely unaware of his incarceration altogether. Serving the image, I noticed that he had gained some weight, his dreadlocks had grown longer, and he was donning a pair of glasses despite not requiring them. However, there was no doubt in my mind that it was indeed him. As I drove home, my mind was burdened with a plethora of thoughts, stirred up by the unexpected discovery. I couldn't fathom the reasons behind my wife's decision to meet him during his confinement, and the fact that I was completely kept in the dark about it troubled me deeply. This revelation cast a shadow of doubt over our relationship, particularly given the challenges we had faced in extricating her from the complicated love triangle she had been entangled in. Even upon arriving home, I found my wife engrossed in television, but I wasted no time in heading straight for the computer. Determined to unravel the situation, I embarked on an extensive investigation, delving deep into the details to uncover the truth. A way that I wouldn't find any relevant information on my wife's social media. I decided to explore Nadine's page. Keith's sister. Much to my surprise, the pictures I stumbled upon indicated that he had been released from confinement for approximately 3 years. Intrigued, I continued scrolling through Nadine's friends, and there I came across numerous images featuring my wife, Keith, and Nadine together at various locations and social gatherings. The sight of these photographs stirred up a whirlwind of emotions within me, prompting me to confront my wife and seek her explanation. Initiating a conversation, I casually asked her if she had been in contact with Keith recently. Confused, she gazed at me and claimed that she hadn't heard from him. The realization that she had just lied to my face struck me with disbelief, shattering the trust I had placed in her. In that moment, a flood of thoughts rushed through my mind, recollecting all the subtle signs I had overlooked. She had been absent more frequently, staying up late engrossed in phone conversations, and avoiding any romantic gestures towards me, just with her lies serving as the breaking point. I felt compelled to dig deeper in search of answers, resorting to snooping to uncover the truth. In an attempt to catch her off guard, I shouldered additional responsibilities with the kids, hoping that the added free time would lead her to make a mistake in my presence. After a few days of observation, the slip-up occurred when she casually mentioned to him that I would be taking the kids to visit my parents. Following a pleasant time spent with my children and parents, I decided to reach out to our elderly neighbor, residing next door, to inquire if she had noticed any visitors at our house. Pushed me to my astonishment, she confirmed that someone had indeed arrived a while ago, driving the same car that was frequently seen. It was startling to realize that even our neighbor was aware of Keith's visits, further deepening the sense of surprise and betrayal. Although I was not fully aware of all the details, I felt a sense of anger because I had an intuition about what was going on. When we returned home, I confronted her, asking if she had any friends over while I was away. She denied it, claiming she had simply taken a nap. I knew deep down that this was untrue, and I became increasingly frustrated with her. Determined to distance myself from the situation, I fabricated an excuse to spend the entire day outside the house. I informed her that I would be taking my children to their classmate's house for a playdate and later planned to visit my cousin Anthony. She agreed to my plan, and when Saturday arrived, I took the kids to their friend's house as planned and then headed to a nearby restaurant to wait. After spending around 3 hours there, I attempted to call her, but she didn't answer. Growing concerned, I drove back to our street and parked at the far end. As I walked back towards our house, I noticed his car parked there, and my anger began to rise, but I managed to keep my composure. Our house was a single-story ranch-style home, which meant I couldn't sneak in through an upstairs entrance. Instead, I had to enter through the back, where the kitchen was located. As I made my way inside, I could already hear voices coming from the living room. It became evident that they had left the bedroom door open, and when I glanced inside, my world shattered upon witnessing him intimately involved with her on her own bed. I stood there completely frozen, struggling to prevent myself from zoning out and losing touch with reality. Upon regaining my senses, I quickly gathered myself and decided to seek support from my neighbor next door. I wanted to have a credible witness by my side when I confronted her about the situation. I walked over and knocked on their door, and to my advantage her son answered. He greeted me and asked how I was doing. I mustered the courage to ask him for a favor inside my house, explaining that I needed him to keep an eye on something for me. He agreed to help but requested some time as he was currently attending to his own children. Afterwards, I returned to my house and patiently waited for about 15 minutes for him to arrive. It was an excruciating wait, as I had to endure the sounds and visuals of him engaging in intimate activities with my wife while trying to maintain my composure. Finally, he entered the house, and I instructed him to wait in the living room while I walked into the room and confronted both of them. The situation quickly escalated into a chaotic mess, and amidst the heated shouting, our neighbor's son entered the scene. Drawn by the commotion, seeing him, Keith, the person involved with my wife, mistakenly thought we were about to attack him. In a half-dressed state, he hastily jumped out of our room's window, leaving my wife feeling embarrassed as she stood there wearing nothing but her socks. In the midst of our heated argument, I firmly expressed my desire for a divorce, to which she retaliated by yelling "F you." Overwhelmed by the situation, we both decided to leave and seek refuge at my neighbor's house again. I expressed my gratitude to him for standing by me during the confrontation and apologized for not informing him about the situation beforehand. I explained. He revealed that his original intention was simply to bring his kids over to visit their grandmother, never expecting to be caught up in such a tumultuous turn of events. As night fell, I headed over to my cousin's place to spend time with him and his girlfriend. During the drive, my wife called and unleashed a torrent of curses upon me. I reminded her of all the things I had done for her, only to be met with the utmost disrespect. To my disbelief, she accused me of being the cause of our marital issues and claimed that I had manipulated her into marrying me and starting a family, when all she wanted was to work things out with Keith. Her hurtful words insinuated that I no longer cared about her. I conveyed to her that if she truly regretted having our children, then she didn't need to concern herself with them any longer. She attempted to clarify her intentions, but I ended the call abruptly. She can say whatever she pleases about me, even express regret for marrying me, but I refuse to tolerate any disrespect towards my children. Upon reaching my cousin's house, I shared the entire situation with him. He and his girlfriend stood by my side unwaveringly, even throughout the divorce proceedings. It seemed that the experience brought us even closer together. During the divorce, I found myself in a deeply unfavorable situation. Not only was I required to pay alimony and child support, but she also gained custody of our children. Following the proceedings, she reached out and attempted to apologize for her earlier remarks about the kids. She expressed her love for her daughters and claimed that she did not regret having them. In response, I couldn't help but question whether her love for them was the very reason our family had fallen apart. She confessed that she never intended for it to happen and explained that everything changed when she unexpectedly ran into Keith's sister, Nadine, during her lunch break from work. They started catching up, and it altered the course of events. She explained that she had a conversation with Nadine, who shared the news that Keith had been arrested. Apparently, he was pulled over for driving under the influence, and when the police searched his vehicle, they discovered marijuana in his possession, and that he was already wanted by the authorities. As a result, he was taken into custody. Upon learning about this, my wife experienced a sense of remorse. Nadine then asked if she could provide support for Keith while he was incarcerated, and my wife agreed. Once Keith was granted parole, he reconnected with my wife and expressed his apologies for how he had treated her in the past. After reconnecting, their affair began and continued for approximately 2 years. I had always suspected that his apologies were insincere, and recently I received confirmation that my intuition was correct. A friend of mine shared that she had encountered someone who was familiar with Keith, through me and my cousin. Curious about my well-being, she inquired about me, to which he responded positively. However, when she asked about my ex-wife, he shook his head and expressed regret, stating that she should have stayed with me. It turns out that Keith was still involved with the mother of his child, engaging in relationships with both of them simultaneously. Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but roll my eyes, choosing to divert the conversation elsewhere. I had made sincere efforts to rescue her from this senseless love triangle, yet she continues to succumb to the deception. It's evident that he has always been a fool, but witnessing her apparent enjoyment in being treated as just another disposable fling was disheartening. She fails to grasp the fact that he will never let go of his child's mother. If you find yourself hearing a girl you're interested in constantly talking about her ex, it's a clear sign to run in the opposite direction. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. If you liked it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story.